In this video, I want to share with you 5 reasons why wealth building is so tricky after 50. And this is based on my own experience. I've been investing for almost 40 years now, and the past 15 years, we've been creating these multiple income streams as we sort of stumbled into retirement in late midlife. And so it's tricky to build wealth after 50, right? And I'm going to tell you why, but it can totally be done. So there are 5 reasons that I want to share with you. The very first reason is we just don't have time for long-term buy and hold investing in stocks to really pay off, right? I suppose if you're 50 and you're not needing the money until you're, 70, then yeah, there is that, possibility, or 75. But we don't have decades like the younger generations do. People in their 20s, 30s, even 40s, they had that time to ride out market cycles, to let their wealth compound and grow, to save periodically. It's a brilliant strategy that requires very little work for the people that want to go with that model. But if you're over 50, you don't have all those decades to do that, right? And most of the financial education around investing is geared toward that long-term buy and hold investing. That's what makes it even trickier to, find strategies that work once we're over 50, right? So that's the very first thing that I want to mention that makes it hard to build wealth after 50. The next thing I want to mention is that jobs become limited, right? At your level. So if you've been working in a career for 2 or 3 decades, you have really reached a high level of expertise. You've become more expensive, right? And that makes it harder to find jobs because there are only so many jobs at that higher level. We run into that when we enter, right, the workforce, and we run into it when we get over 50, past 50, because our expertise has really risen, and we're more expensive, right? So that's the second challenge with building wealth after 50, is there are fewer jobs, and people are still there are the same amount of people competing for those jobs, right? And so that makes it a little bit tricky. The third reason that it's hard to build wealth after 50 is that this one's so important. We can hit it at the wrong time in the cycle, right? So, for example, someone that retired in the late 1990s, after that huge bull market we had that was so fantastic in the 1990s, would have really suffered over the next 10 years if they were invested in stocks. But then if someone retired in 2010 and they loaded up on stocks at that time, right? So just let's say they did, they would have had a great run for the next 10 years. They would have been able to compound and build wealth easily. So timing is tricky with cycles, and this isn't about day trading, or you've heard me say here before. This is about long-term cycles that are influenced mostly by the economy, that drive the cycles in the stock market because it's tied to earnings growth for the companies that are in the stock market. So that's the third reason. The fourth reason I want to mention, let me look at my notes so I don't forget anything. Oh, this one's lifestyle inflation, okay? I remember when I drove through the bank, my first job after college, and I withdrew $10 because that's all I could withdraw. And I could put gas in my car for 5 of it, and I had the other 5 to buy lunch, maybe one day. Now I don't want to do that. I withdraw a lot more money now. Not only do things cost more, but my lifestyle standards are so much higher, right? I've been very fortunate to have lived a good life, but also I just want nicer things now. As our earnings creep up over the years and we have more money over the years, we want nicer things. We buy nicer things. That's not wrong or evil. That's just the way that it is. So lifestyle inflation can make it harder to build wealth because you feel like your expenses are just normal, that it's kind of what you've always done, but it's really not what you've always done. There's this process where you can just look back when you were poor, and you have less money, and you suddenly realize how much you do spend. And so that lifestyle inflation is, it's a challenge, and it makes it harder to lower your spending, and hence put aside more money to grow. And then the last thing I want to mention is the myth of lower costs. This is related to lifestyle spending, but sort of the prevalent belief around retirement is, and even in after 50, it's once the kids are gone, we will no longer need this big house, or we will no longer be going on family vacations, or we will no longer have this or that. And I don't know about you, but I kind of want to live my same standard of living at least for the rest of my life. So I think there's a myth around that. And there are all these rules. If you read my blog, I don't like rules of thumb because everybody's different. Everybody's situation is different. And I don't think we can say, okay, well, I'm going to cut my spending by 25% like everybody else because that's suggested once I retire or once I'm over 55, my kids move out, whatever. I think that that's a myth, and I don't like that personally, but it works for some people and some people don't mind it. But for me, I don't really like it. And not only that, gosh, our healthcare has gotten so expensive. If you are over 50 and you've got that gap of time before you are able to get Medicare, boy, that can be, a real issue. Healthcare is incredibly expensive, and people tend to have more things come up, right? Hip replacements and et cetera, as they age. So that's another problem with thinking you're going to spend less. And there are two more reasons. Aging parents or family that needs help is a common issue today, especially with rising healthcare costs and the rising cost of living, right? So that's sort of an unknown variable that's not necessarily going to make it easier for you to build wealth over 50. And then the last thing I want to mention is the bucket list. Now, that's after 50, we go, wait a minute, I've always wanted to do this, 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 and hopefully you're doing that, right? But that all costs money. So that sort of ties back to the lifestyle inflation and these other points I'm making. So those are the 5 reasons. It's really it's not so easy to build wealth after 50. It can be done. And that's what I want to share with you. If you found this information helpful, make sure you subscribe to my channel. And I appreciate your watching. I'd love it if you would click that you liked this video in the corner below the video. Thanks.